Imagine owning only 15 items. Sounds liberating, right? What if living with so little can also leave you feeling empty, isolated, and even financially unstable? Today, I invite you to journey with me on a transformative story where extreme minimalism almost ruined my life, only to save it in a most unexpected way. In the next 10 minutes, we will explore the highs and lows of a lifestyle stripped to almost nothing and reveal how I discovered the power of balance and financial wisdom. Our story begins with the allure of minimalism. At first glance, minimalism promises freedom. Fewer possessions mean fewer distractions, less responsibility, and a simpler life. I recall the moment I decided to embrace this radical lifestyle. I sold off countless items, discarded sentimental trinkets, and pared down my living space to a few essentials. In those early days, the crisp, uncluttered environment felt like a fresh canvas, ready to be filled with possibility and renewed passion. The promise of liberation tugged at me, and I was eager for the change. For about a minute and a half, I basked in the joy of my newfound clarity. I lived by the notion that less was more, and every item I owned held deep intentional meaning. However, as the days turned into weeks, a different truth began to surface. I started feeling an unanticipated void, a silence where there once was vibrancy. The absence of familiar objects, each carrying memories of laughter, regret, triumph, and tears, left me questioning what I had sacrificed along the way. The minimalism that promised simplicity quickly morphed into a stark, lonely environment that made me feel disconnected from the colorful tapestry of life. This realization marks the first act, an overwhelming crisis fueled by a philosophy that I once believed was my ticket to freedom. As the initial excitement faded, isolation crept in slowly. I began to notice that the bonds I had with people were fraying. Friends and family struggled to understand why I was so intent on reducing my world to its barest essentials. Conversations that once brimmed with passion about life's details now felt shallow and clipped. And, in a twist that was both ironic and painful, the very mindset that had once drawn me to minimalism, my commitment to simplicity and focus, had inadvertently trapped me in a cycle of loneliness and introspection. It is during these moments of introspection that the seeds of crisis begin to sprout. I was trapped in a minimalist echo chamber, my physical emptiness mirroring an emotional void. Now let's pause for a moment with a humorous interjection. Have you ever tried to microwave a frozen dinner in a minimalist kitchen and realized you only had one dish? It's a funny image, but even humor couldn't mask the growing tension in my daily life. My strict adherence to minimalism began to infiltrate every aspect of my well-being, including my finances. The pursuit of extreme minimalism brought with it an admirable level of frugality. I prided myself on spending only what was essential. However, this approach soon turned from saving money to a dangerous game of financial uncertainty. Investing in opportunities that required a little extra was often dismissed as unnecessary risk, pushing me to a point where saving desperately outweighed the joy of potential wealth accumulation. In this second act, the plot thickens as conflict builds and the tension becomes almost unbearable. I became a slave to my own radical beliefs. The isolation grew deeper as I withdrew from social interactions, convinced that any form of clutter, be it physical or emotional, must be eradicated. But in doing so, I lost the very support network that could have guided me through difficult times. I began to question if this relentless pursuit of minimalism was truly aligning with my long-term goals, or if it was steering me toward an unforeseen downfall. I discovered that by overemphasizing the destruction of excess, I was dismantling not only my material comforts, but also valuable human connections and financial stability. Then came those moments of sheer panic, where it felt like I was teetering on the edge of a precipice. One particular day, alarm bells went off. I found myself unable to pay a bill or even purchase a vital item because my commitment to extreme minimalism had blinded me to realistic needs. It was as if I had traded in the wisdom of investing in one's future for a fleeting sense of purity. Every day brought a new challenge, a financial cliffhanger that left me wondering if there was any escape from the vicious cycle of self-imposed austerity. I was caught in a tug-of-war between what I believed minimalism offered and the harsh reality of living an unbalanced life. As the crisis deepened, an unexpected yet humorous thought occurred to me. In the midst of my financial scramble, I found myself debating if my wallet would last longer if I applied minimalist decor principles to it. Maybe even recycle it, right? The irony of that mental image was a small ray of humor piercing the darkness of my situation. Yet even humor has its limits, and it became clear that something had to change. The turning point was near when I almost lost hope and accepted that my path was a dead end. Act 3 is where transformation happens, a shift from despair to empowerment. I recognized that the extreme form of minimalism I had once championed was not serving my life's deeper purpose. Addressing the imbalance head-on, I started to rebuild my life piece by piece. Instead of seeing my possessions, and by extension my choices, as burdens, that reward you in the long run. It was a profound revelation. By combining the principles of minimalism with wise financial strategies, I could have the best of both worlds. I started applying the practice of mindful spending, where every purchase became a strategic decision rather than an impulsive act. Each step helped rebuild my confidence and my financial security, setting me on a path that was enriching on many levels. This transformation was not instantaneous. It was a gradual ascent from the depths of self-doubt and crisis. I found myself reconnecting with old friends, embracing social gatherings without the burden of excessive material expectations, and most importantly, discovering innovative ways to compound modest savings into a growing nest egg. I began to appreciate the irony. The very practice that once isolated me was now being reformed to foster both liberation and wealth. A harmonious blend had been struck, a realization that life doesn't have to be all or nothing, and sometimes less is not always more. Throughout this journey, I experienced some minor setbacks. There were days when the old patterns threatened to pull me back into the void of extreme minimalism. In those moments, I had to confront my inner fears head-on: the fear of clutter, the anxiety of financial instability, and the dread of mediocrity. I learned that true strength lies in the ability to adapt and blend seemingly opposing ideas into a cohesive strategy for living well. Patterns of humor gently interrupted these heavy reflections, reminding me that life's greatest lessons are often taught with a side of laughter. For example, I sometimes joked about how I once threw away not just things, but also my will to engage in impromptu karaoke sessions with friends. Life was just too streamlined. As I stand here today, emerging from the crossfire of extreme minimalism and financial anxiety, I want you to consider my journey as a lesson in balance and empowerment. The crisis I endured is not a cautionary tale of living with too few belongings. Instead, it is a story of transformation, one that teaches us the importance of integrating thoughtful financial decisions with a lifestyle that honors both simplicity and the richness of experience. By choosing a balanced path, you can harness the liberating potential of minimalism without succumbing to its pitfalls. Now, let me leave you with this compelling thought. Sometimes the very extremes we cherish hide the most dangerous traps. It takes courage to confront the reality of our choices and to pivot towards a more balanced approach. Just as I discovered, the journey from isolation to inclusivity, from austerity to wealth, is paved with intentional decisions that compound into long-lasting rewards. And remember, in the balancing act of life, every step counts. Occasionally, a short laugh or a nimble shift in perspective is all it takes to reset our focus and steer us toward true fulfillment. As we reach the end of this narrative, I encourage you to embrace challenges as opportunities. Do not fear the complexity of life. Instead, allow yourself to learn from every misstep and every triumph along the way. My own misadventures in extreme minimalism taught me that saving every penny is meaningless if you lose the richness of life and the chance to build genuine wealth. It is in the harmony of mindfulness and strategic financial planning that we find true empowerment. If you ever feel tempted to go too far in any direction, remember that balance is the cornerstone of success. Before you go, here is a thought to ponder. If you could choose between the thrill of saving $1 and the power of turning that dollar into thousands, which would you pick? Discover how embracing the power of compounding can transform your financial future. Click here to watch our next video on this game-changing strategy. Thank you for spending these moments with me. Our journey from minimalism gone astray to a reinvigorated life of balance and wealth reminds us that every extreme has its counterpart. Embrace the journey, learn relentlessly, and make choices that empower your future. Your path to true financial freedom and personal growth is just beginning.